following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, the gang's all here, sort of. Yeah, producer John's back in studio, so that's kind of cool. Matt's not in studio, but he will be joining us by phone here momentarily. We'll talk about where he is and why producer John and I are jealous here shortly. Let's see. What do we got coming up on this show? Hey, IROC is back in action. Sort of. And it's more than just the one throwback of throwing back to IROC. We'll give you all the details on that. Silly season hits Formula E hard in the face. Haas F1 continues to set up, and man, the changes they're looking at coming up in 2025 looking bigger and bigger. Kyle Busch, Corey LaJoie, probably not exchanging Christmas cards this year. And a John Force update, because that's what we do here on this particular show. That and more on this week's show, getting rolling right after we take this quick break.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us on this particular Saturday here. This will be the last Saturday of racing for a couple of weeks when it comes to here in the U.S. anyway, and that is all, of course, because the Olympics. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. First things first. Again, I'm Steve West. Got producer John in studio. Hello and good morning.
Morning.
What's happening? You going to make it?
Maybe.
Okay. 2 hours. We'll find out. And then by phone from whereabouts is you, by the way, Mr. Matt Nicholson?
We're down on the Emerald Coast on the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I had him going to the mountains.
That's almost as bad, if not worse.
It's just for John being jealous.
We're down. It's a little wet down here, but it's all right.
That's all right. We're a little wet up here, too, so what's the difference? So you had the chance to watch a little racing last night. We'll talk about that here in just a couple of moments. Let's quickly recap what happened last weekend. Not a huge slate of racing last weekend. Last Saturday, NASCAR was up in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. They had their one trip to the triangle-shaped track this year, and while he's been close all season long, there was something that just kind of seemed to be conspiring to keep our defending Xfinity Series champion Cole Custer from being able to go back to victory lane until last Saturday when everything kind of seemingly came together. The win for Custer happened when he got the lead on the restart with 9 laps to go and was able to hold off Justin Allgaier to claim the win. Again, first of the year, first for Ford on the year in the Xfinity Series. So here's your top 10. Custer, Allgaier, Moonlighter, William Byron, Sheldon Creed, Taylor Gray, A.J. Allmendinger, Austin Hill, Parker Kligerman, Sammy Smith, and Sam Mayer. Cole Custer, Justin Allgaier are two guys that I keep hearing that so many people are watching for us as far as them battling it out for the title coming up this year. And I don't mean any disrespect to either one of them, but it's not like either one of them, Matt, are just tearing things up on the Xfinity Series circuit this year. Why would you think that those two would be the favorites, according to some?
From the consistency standpoint.
There you go.
And how consistent they've been all year.
Yep. I have to admit, I fully agree with that. And I say that knowing this. Shane Van Gisbergen is your 1 seed. He's got 3 wins. He's the only guy with 3 wins. He's leading the way. 2 wins for Chandler Smith, Austin Hill, Sam Mayer, Cole Custer, Justin Allgaier, Jesse Love have a win apiece. So there's your guys that are locked into the playoffs. Leaves only 5 slots that are for those that are in on points. That one's led by A.J. Allmendinger, then Riley Herbst, who did not have a great day at Pocono last weekend. Sheldon Creed, Parker Kligerman, Sammy Smith. Smith's holding a 22-point lead over Ryan Sieg for that final position in the playoffs. We've got a few more races to go before this is all said and done. Sammy Smith, arguably better equipment. Is he the favorite, or what kind of chances are you giving Ryan Sieg here?
Oh, I would say, well, from a standpoint of like today, with today's event back on the oval at Indianapolis for Xfinity, I would give Ryan Sieg the edge from an experience standpoint because he has had laps on the oval, which is where Sammy Smith has not.
Right.
So I'm going to give Sieg the edge today. Now the other places, time will tell.
Right.
But I'll give him the edge.
Okay. Saturday evening out in Iowa, IndyCar got in the first race of their doubleheader weekend. When it was complete, the man in victory lane, Scott McLaughlin, that cements to him, and I find this an interesting bit, to himself, he is now officially an IndyCar driver. He said in interviews after the race, quote, that he wouldn't have felt complete until he won on an oval track. Leading 164 or 250 laps ought to help him feel a little bit more complete, don't you think?
I would say so.
McLaughlin bettering Pato Award to the finish line. Joseph Newgarden third, Scott Dixon, Renus, VK were the top 5. Rest of your top 10, Santino, Ferrucci. We're going to get back to that conversation here in a little bit. Kyle Kirkwood, Alexander Rossi, Marcus Ericsson, and Marcus Armstrong. And since there was a race number 2, we'll talk about points after we deal with talking about that. So let's talk about it. Because Sunday morning was the very next race, local time, at least in Iowa, where IndyCar was at it again. And finally, the driver who has 7 career poles at Iowa, but never could seem to claim a win, finally got that win. And here's the thing, 19 attempts. I mean, how long is it going to take? He finally gets one. Will Power. His day didn't start off promising because he qualified 22nd, but apparently, qualifying and putting your car on the pole ain't going to work. So he just kept moving up through the field, had a great green flag final pit stop, got him in front of Alex Palou, cruises into victory lane, claims his 43rd win of his career. If there's a guy who is in the top 5, top 10 of all-time wins in any series but has been ridiculously quiet about it, ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you Will Power.
Bingo.
I mean,
bingo.
Yeah, for a guy who has just been as good and as solid as Will Power has been, nobody talks about him. We talk about Joseph Newgarden. We talk about Scott Dixon. We talk about the Jimmy Johnsons of the NASCAR world and you know, the Kyle Bushes, and I get it. Why don't we talk about Will Power in the same breath as those guys? He's got the resume that matches it.
I would say it's how he carries himself, and he just goes and does his job, and he stays out of the limelight. He just minds his own business and does his job. That's my opinion.
Can we get more people to do that?
What a few.
Not enough. Power and Palou are first and second. Scott McLaughlin finishes third. Scott Dixon fourth. Colton Herta fifth. Rest of your top 10 Pato Award: Joseph Newgarden, Graham Rahal, Renus VK, Romain Grosjean making his way into the top 10 there. So with the weekend in their rearview mirror, Alex Palou leads the points 379 to 344 over Will Power. Pato Awards next, 327. 322 for Scott Dixon. Scott McLaughlin's now up into the top 5 as well, 314 points. Really, those are the guys who we're going to be keeping an eye on here, the handful of races left in the IndyCar year. Rookie points, Linus Lundqvist continues to lead that, 156 points for him. Kiffin Simpson second, but starting to lose ground with 125. You got Christian Rasmussen in there with 104. Nolan Siegel's now up to fourth with 79. Teo Pourchaire still looking for a ride, so he is sidelined, and we're pretty much going to leave it at the active 4 there. As for the engine manufacturers, Chevrolet with a good weekend expands their lead in the manufacturer standings. They are now up to a 904 to 845 point lead over Honda. 6 more races left in IndyCar. I'm not saying that we couldn't see a pretty good amount of movement between now and then, but I think we're starting to see I think we're starting to see the top 5 and how the rookie standings are going to kind of work their way through as we go through these next 6 races. Or do you think I'm wrong?
I think you're pretty well spot on with that right there.
Okay. That'll bring us back to
spot on.
That'll bring us back to Pocono. Final race of the weekend last weekend was for the Cup Series, and while Ford has had a rough start to the 2024 season, things seem to be rolling better now, especially for the defending Cup Series champion. He said that he and his team are just clicking right now, clicking to claim his second win of 2024. He held off the man who seems to own Pocono in his career, Denny Hamlin, to get that win. Blaney beat Hamlin to the line by more than a second and a half. Alex Bowman was third. William Byron and Joey Logano finished out the top 5. Rest of your top 10, Tyler Reddick, Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace in there. No new winners, new seed order. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, William Byron remain your top 3. Then Christopher Bell with 3 wins in there as well. 2 wins for Blaney, wins by Chase Elliott, Tyler Reddick, Brad Keselowski, Alex Bowman, Joey Logano, Daniel Suarez, and Austin Cindric. So almost immediately we're starting to see a little bit of movement here, and we're starting to see those repeat winners. These are the guys that are locked into the playoffs. We've only got a couple of more races. I say a couple of more races here before we get into the playoffs. Is there anybody outside of being locked in? And I'm going to kind of eliminate the guys who are in on points right now. Let's deal with them. They're Martin Truex Jr., Ty Gibbs, Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain. Chastain is only 27 points up on Bubba Wallace for 16th in the final playoff spot. Chase Briscoe's 75 back. Chastain, behind Chastain, he's the only other driver within 100 points of making the playoffs. So you got Bubba Wallace, Chase Briscoe in there, Ross Chastain. These 3 obviously fighting for the points situation. As much as I would love to root and say Chase Briscoe's got a really good shot to point his way in, I'm not so certain that I've seen that out of the 14 car. As much as it pains me to say it. Is there anybody else that you're looking at? I mean, are you looking at Kyle Busch maybe, who's, again, 102 points out right now? I mean, what are the chances of these guys actually trying to get their way in on points?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say this here.
Okay.
I'm going to say that the bottom 4 that are currently in are safe because I use the word, the parity in the Cup Series that is going on now is bigger than it's ever been before. You don't see just a handful, just a couple of handful of the people just dominating week after week after week.
Yeah, that's true.
You got actual parity. So the only one that could probably even, oh boy, the only one that could probably even come close to unseating anybody in that Final 4 right now is, I'm going to say, is going to be Wallace, because there's not been a level of consistency out of the 14, as you said.
Right.
He really hasn't shown anything to knock it out. The second thing is, and I hate to say it, but the equipment and the team Kyle Busch is with right now is what's holding him back.
I would agree with that. But we still have Daytona. We still got Daytona. That's a wild card.
True.
So, I was kind of eliminating the whole wild card thing and somebody that doesn't have a win getting a win. I was just looking at it from a points standpoint. It's difficult. There's no doubt about it. Did you check out the racing last night? I know you did because you were texting me about it a little bit. Last night, Craftsman Truck Series running at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park in a race they called the T-Sport 200.
I did, and I'm going to say for standards of IRP, it was quite a calm race.
Okay.
Very calm. You had, looking at the actual thing right here, you only had 4 cautions, and 2 of them were stage breaks.
Wow. Yeah, so, that's very tame.
Yeah. You had a spin in turn 1 on the first caution, and then you had a truck have a tire go down and pop the wall and spread a little bit of debris.
Okay.
That was it.
Wow.
But you had Ty Majeski locking himself in officially with a win.
First win for Ford in the Truck Series this year.
It was. You had Christian Eckes as second, Grant Enfinger third, Tyler Ingram fourth, Lane Riggs top 5, Sammy Smith 6th, Luke Fenhouse 7th, Paul Sitter, Rajah Caruth with 8, Dean Thompson was 9th, and Nick Sanchez in 10th.
Okay. We note it now. Majeski, new first-time winner for this year anyway, and his win gives 5 of the 10 playoff spots taken up by winners. Corey Heim leading the way with 5 wins, 3 wins for Christian Eckes, 2 for Nick Sanchez. Majeski, Rajah Caruth in there with a win each. Those who are fighting to get in on points with 1 race left in the Truck Series regular season. It'll be next month, middle of the month, at Richmond. Those who are in on points, Tyler Ankrum, Grant Enfinger, Taylor Gray, Ben Rhodes, and Tanner Gray. But things are not what anybody would call comfortable for one Tanner Gray. Tanner's holding a slim 5-point lead over Daniel Dye. So only 5 points out. 16-point lead over Stuart Friesen. Matt Crafton and Chase Purdy could also point their way in, 43 and 44 out respectively. Yeah, they would have a lot of work to do, but it is feasible mathematically for them to do it. So there's still a lot to play for here, and we're going to Richmond, and I kind of get the funny feeling Richmond's not going to be like Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. I don't think it'll be anywhere near as tame.
Not at all. You got those others fighting for those final 3 spots because Grant and Tyler officially locked themselves in last night on points, so they're in.
Yeah.
So now we got 3 final spots left to be remaining,
and a whole lot of people vying for them. Oof.
That dude, you do.
Yep, it's going to be a busy weekend here, so I'm going to tell you what, Producer John, let's go ahead and take that break, and when we come back, we'll give the full rundown of what's going on. Because if you know and have been listening to this particular show for any length of time, you know the series that we cover on a regular basis. Guess what? Every single one of them are in action this weekend. We'll get that scheduled to you and get into the news, starting with an update on John Force right after this break.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Indeed we are. Again, if you're just now joining us, I'm Steve West, producer John joining me in studio and relaxing down by the beach. Huh.
Yeah.
So sorry for you there, Matt.
I wouldn't call it that. I wouldn't call it that.
It can't be all that stressful being by the beach.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I understand. All right, here's the schedule. And again, packed schedule. Talk about it pretty constantly that, you know, as we've gone from the very, very beginnings of this show as just a 15-minute Saturday afternoon show segment to the full 2-hour thing that we are, we have really grown as far as the series we cover on a regular basis, and all of them are in action. Today we got the first race of a doubleheader season finale weekend for Formula E. They're going to be running the Hankook London E-Prix, 20 turns, 1.29 mile long Excel circuit in London. Gets underway at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time, and get this, it's airing live on CBS. Yep, I actually said it, live and on CBS. Huh, who knew? They actually figured out that they had the rights to this particular series. Then we turn our attention back to Indianapolis. This is where the Xfinity Series is going to take center stage for the Pennzoil 250 at the Brickyard. Race is going to air on USA and MRN Radio starting 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. Sunday will be a busy one. Formula One leads off. They're going to contest the Hungarian Grand Prix on the 14-turn, 2.72-mile-long Hungaroring circuit. That race will air live, Ace, Race, whatever. It'll air live on ESPN starting at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. Formula E's season finale will then get rolling in London. Same exact Excel circuit in London that we were talking about for this morning's race. Airing, I'm just about floored by this, once again, live on CBS starting at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. Not even the CBS Sports Network, which nobody gets. Then we go to IndyCar, heading north of the border to run the Ontario Honda dealers Indy Toronto race. It's on the streets of that city. It's an 11-turn, 1.786-mile-long course. But this one you only get on the Peacock streaming service, but you can hear it on IRN radio starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central Time. And then we go back to NASCAR, where we will finally get back on the classic big track, the 2.5-mile-long rectangle. It's the first time we've been there since, 2019, 2020? 2020, I think, was eliminated by COVID. So it'd be 2019, wouldn't it?
2020 was on the oval. 2021 was the first road course race.
Okay. Either way, it's been 4 years. And in some ways, I would say too long. Brickyard 400 airs on NBC and the IRN radio network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Central Time. I think it's PRN announcers, though, that actually have the gig, if I remember right.
It's a combination of PRN announcers and IRN announcers going through the IRN radio network.
There you go. All right. And by the way, we ain't done yet because the NHRA is also in action. They head out west to run the Northwest Nationals. Pacific Raceway, Kent, Washington, just outside of Seattle. Live, the finals will be kind of in the middle of the day, although they'll start anyway in the middle of the day. Fox will air them on a somewhat delayed basis, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. Again, none of the series that we cover on a regular basis are going to be off this weekend. So there you go. If you're into racing and you like the series that we like, you're going to be a happy person because you got a lot to choose from. All right. As we have been doing since, really the crash, we lead off with the NHRA, and the main reason we do that is because of the John Force situation. Again, if you are unfamiliar with it, a few weeks ago when they were at Virginia Motorsports Park, John Force won his round in the finals. But as he crossed the finish line, the engine blew up, and he had not really had the chance to slow down, had not deployed a parachute. Engine absolutely explodes. He slams into the right side retaining wall, bounces all the way across, slams into the left side retaining wall, stayed in what we found out later was Virginia Commonwealth University's medical center and their ICU and their neural ICU for 3 weeks, I think it was, almost a month, and finally got transferred, which we talked about here on the show last week, to a neural rehab center much closer to his home in California. They did a med flight, basically, to get him from the East Coast, Virginia, back out towards California. And in that time, only one car, that of Austin Prock from John Force Racing, has been in competition. Well, that's about to change. Brittany Force has said now's the time. She's been by her father's side basically the entire time, and now she's set to return to racing. This is her first time, obviously, behind the wheel since that June 23rd crash. 38-year-old Brittany has the track in Kent, Washington, has the track speed record. She set it just last year, so she's headed back and says, quote, "I want to thank crew chief David Grubnick, John Collins, and my team for their patience and support in my decision to stay with my father while racing continued. Missing a race was tough, but I needed to be with my dad and my family. Didn't seem to hurt her too badly. She's still in the top 10 in points. And at this point in time, with what has happened to her dad and the fact that, she's of the Force family, it's going to be hard not to root for Brittany. Or do you think I'm off base on this one, Matt?"
Oh, no, you're not off base. I mean, it's going to be very hard to not root for her for sure. And with her track record of being extremely fast on any given week and being, I'm going to say, within the top 4 of the qualifying ladder, yeah, we may be, and I use that term really, really loosely, we may be about to see somebody go on a tear.
That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Would not be the worst
No, it
thing in the
wouldn't
world.
be.
As
Nope.
for, okay, so Brittany's there. Austin Prock is there. John Force's racer is not. Not yet, anyway. We have found out a little bit more about this. The Peak Antifreeze Chevrolet Camaro funny car that has been sidelined since the injury is set to get back into action in some way, shape, or form fairly soon. The John Force Racing president, which is Robert Height, who he himself has been sidelined this year from being able to race, but he is still in control of the team, said Thursday the plan is to get the car back on track before the countdown to the championship begins in September. He's tentatively looking at the first weekend in August when the series heads back east from their West Coast swing. And while this wouldn't be an officially sanctioned Mission Foods Drag Racing Series event, August 2nd, 3rd in Norwalk, Ohio is something called Cornwell Tools Night Under Fire. This is kind of an all-star type event. You get entrants from Funny Car and Top Fuel, so you'll see names on the entry list like Ron Capps, Cruz Pedregon. Again, not just Top Fuel and Funny Car are going to be there, but there'll be jet cars and that'll be in attendance and running, and others are coming in as well. So he wants to get the car out on the track, but who's going to be behind the wheel? Height said of this, quote, "We hope to tie up all the loose ends and introduce a driver sometime right after the NHRA Sonoma Nationals, which is going to happen next weekend." He does say that there is a good pool of driving talent out there, but adds, quote, "Obviously, we need to find the right fit for both the team and our sponsors." So the obvious solution would have been, at the surface, Robert Height would have been able to come back, but apparently he's still not recovered well enough to be able to get back in that car.
Sure.
So the question becomes, who do you think might be just on the outside looking in, going and have John Force Racing go, "Yeah, you're ready, let's put you in the car"?
I'm going to say
Matt Nicholson.
that it's not.
Sure.
Well, let me make a quick run to Indianapolis or something where I can get my nitro license.
I was about to say, yeah, you'd have a little bit of work to do there. But that being said, as you have said, have fire suit and helmet will travel.
True, very true. But I'm going to go out on well, I guess the phrase of the day is going out on a limb.
Okay.
I'm going to say that it's somebody that is not within the current field. I would not be totally shocked or surprised if you see Courtney come back for like a swan song and drive her dad's car until he gets better. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I got to admit that thought had crossed my mind, because here's the odd thing: if you listen to her and the way that she talks, she does not refer to herself necessarily as retired. She's never really used that word.
She hasn't, and to my knowledge, neither has Ashley.
But of the two, you would go Courtney, you think?
Of the two, I would go Courtney, considering that she's been in a car the most recently versus Ashley. Okay. I'm not going to rule Ashley out, but I would say I would give the edge to Courtney over Ashley right now, for the simple fact of her being in the car the most recent.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, hopefully that will be the case. So from John Force's crash, we present to you another, at least on the surface, horrible-looking crash. We caught this picture in action and could not resist sharing it with you if you happen to be on CRN Live on YouTube. And our thoughts and our prayers go out to Stingray Rob. He was involved in a 4-car crash where his car flipped over twice. Rob got into Alexander Rossi on the final lap of the Sunday race in Iowa, flipped the 2 times, landed upside down. The car slid down the backstretch at the track. And Kyle Kirkwood, Ed Carpenter, also got involved here as Carpenter's car ended up on top of Rob's. Rob got pulled out of his car, kind of helped out a little bit on his own, and got onto a stretcher. He was able to give a thumbs up as he was put into the ambulance. Initially, he was taken to the infield care center where he was awake and alert, but just to be on the safe side and because of traffic, they took him by helicopter to nearby Des Moines to Mercy Medical Center for further evaluation. Here's the good news. The hospital evaluated him and sent him home that same evening. So he didn't even have to stay overnight for observation. And the other interesting thing about it is, and if you happen to catch Crossed Flags, our podcast, then you already know this. But if you didn't, out of what could have been really horrific, Stingray Robb says the only injury he sustained is when he was kind of trying to climb out of the car and being helped out of the car. He touched the top of the aero screen, and you've got that halo system, to use the Formula One terminology about it, which is made of titanium. And because it had been upside down and scraping along the almost entirety of the backstretch, that thing was red hot. He touches the titanium with one hand. The only injury he got was a blister because of how red hot that was. That's, according to him, the only quote-unquote injury he sustained from flipping over twice and sliding over on the top side of the car. That right there is amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty good if you ask me, considering how the IndyCar cockpits are set up.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
I mean, we call it open.
Taking that big of a tumble.
We call it open wheel for a reason. It's open wheel because it's open cockpit, and they've done a lot for the safety, and that's what he got to talking about, as did people from AJ Foyt. He has also, by the way, just to let you know, been cleared to race this weekend in Toronto. Robb said of the safety of the racers in IndyCar, quote, "Everything worked as it was supposed to. I wouldn't change a thing about this car. I think it's as safe as it's ever been. I think IndyCar's done a great job of looking at and analyzing past crashes and adapting to make sure the cars are even stronger and better for the future. I'm sure they'll do the same here. I'm sure there will be a little thing here and there that they could find. But from my perspective, everything worked as it should have, and I'm safe because of that." And he also would go on to credit the AMR safety crew, the people at the Infield Care Center, and I think he actually mentioned the people in the hospital in Des Moines, too.
He did.
Something like this changes a driver. And I'm not saying that you've necessarily been in the same situation as this, but you've been in crashes. Something like this can change you. It can change you for the worse, or it can change you for the better. I'll be real honest when I say this. I would be shocked if this didn't change Stingray Robb for the better, because now he doesn't have any reason to really hold back. He understands something here. Number one, that how safe these cars are. And number two, he has been, and the reason I say it really should help him for the better, is because he has been consistently outqualified and outperformed by his teammate at AJ Foyt Racing, which is Santino Ferrucci. He needs to realize that he is every bit as talented as Ferrucci is, even if it's a bit on the raw side, and that the cars are able to do a lot more than what, on the surface, somebody who just kind of looks at it and goes, "Wow, that looks fragile," might realize. These cars can actually take a pretty good amount of damage. I don't know what that was. Timing situation?
Yeah, it can, and it brings your level of respect to your car up to where, it puts that mindset in you, hey, I could get a little bit more out of this car because I know it'll hold it.
Yeah.
So it gives you that door to open up to where you push it just a little bit harder. That's not saying that he hasn't pushed it to its limits, but it flips that switch in your mind to where hey, I can get a little bit more out of this thing.
See, I'm wondering if I'm going to say it this way. At this point in time, I think Stingray Robb has pushed himself to what he thinks are his limits, but it's not the limits of the car.
I would agree.
And that's where kind of, working to file off the rough edges of a Stingray Robb. Again, he's a young driver. He was a rookie just last year. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to be that ultimate phenom that's going to come out and start, breaking IndyCar records. But I would be shocked if his performance did not begin to improve, because again, he's had his eyes opened to what some things are capable of doing, and now he's just got to understand, hey, I'm capable of doing it too, and get out there and get it done.
Yep, agree. Fully agree.
And that's where Santino Ferrucci comes in. Santino Ferrucci needs to be that mentor. Again, with the way that he's been performing this year and looking like he may actually slide in and get a top 10 finish in points if everything works out over the last 6 races of the year, that would be a big-time improvement and exactly what everyone's been kind of wondering whether or not we could get that out of AJ Foyt. When we come back, Dale Coyne Racing continues to make changes. We'll detail them.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Steve West, producer John in studio, Matt by phone down on the coast. I know we all feel sorry for him. We'll be playing the violin where we sing My Heart Bleeds for him later in the show. Dale Coyne Racing with Rick Ware Racing. Dale Coyne Racing is such a weird thing because just like 2-3 years ago, we really thought that Dale Coyne Racing was going to become this solid, if unspectacular, full-time operation with 2 cars. Well, yeah, we still got the 2 cars, the one that's in conjunction with Rick Ware and the car that he puts out there alone. But they've been running through drivers like you and I change socks. I mean, what in the heck happened to the idea of them being stable and hiring a couple of drivers and seeing if they couldn't, I'll borrow the phrase from the other open wheel series, Formula One, trying to become a solid member of the middle of the pack when it comes to the points?
They are what I would call Indycar's version of Spire Motorsports and Cup from years before.
Yeah, I was about to say back when they started. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
the revolving door.
Yeah, it's unreal.
Everything.
It's unreal. All right,
Yep.
So here's the situation. Here's their lineup for this weekend, and they're saying for the rest of the year. We'll see. The Dale Coyne with Rick Ware racing car. This is the number 51 car. They put Catherine Legg in the car at Iowa. They're going to stick with Catherine Legg this weekend. Second race in a row. Third time this year. She raced for him in the Indy 500, you might remember. after that, she's going to be joined by former Indy Next driver Hunter McElrea. Hunter McElrea is making his IndyCar debut on the streets of Toronto. He'll be driving the 18 car. So you got Legg in the 51, McElrea in the 18. McElrea, the New Zealand native, finished second in the final Indy Next standings for 2023. He's currently running in IMSA as an endurance driver. He actually helped his team finish second in the 12 Hours of Sebring Earlier this year, the team gave him a test in the IndyCar, and Dale Coyne said that he was impressed by Hunter McElrea's abilities, adding, quote, "I'm excited to see what he can do on the streets of Toronto this weekend." To update that even a little more, though, Dale Coyne Racing announced they're going to begin to split the remaining races amongst two drivers. The remaining oval track races in the number 51, this is again the one in conjunction with Rick Ware, will have Catherine Legg behind the wheel again on the oval tracks. On the street and road courses, they're going to go with Toby Sowery. So past this weekend, again, Legg's supposed to be in the car this weekend at Toronto. Past this weekend, it should be Sowery and McElrea. Now, Sowery drove for the team in Mid-Ohio and pressed him with a 13th place finish. Coyne said that he wanted to get Sowery back quickly. Apparently likes him on that, and then Catherine Legg's going to go the oval tracks. And I know that there's Nashville and what am I missing? I don't have the schedule in front of me. Gateway. Okay, so Gateway. And Nashville in the season finale and all the rest. So he's actually getting a couple of fairly young hot shots. Could we be seeing the potential future of Dale Coyne Racing?
I'm going to say I'm not so sure. It's a possibility, but I'm going to say I'm not so sure.
Okay.
Because it's been too many revolving through that door.
Yeah.
Way too many.
I got you. Dale Coyne said about Toby Sowery, quote, "He really impressed us during this weekend with us at Mid-Ohio. We're excited to have him back for another couple of races this year. Not only was Toby a pleasure to work with, but he was up to speed immediately after not having driven one of these cars in over a year." Okay. Well, see how it goes. Good luck to him. Arrow McLaren. This is kind of sad news here. Arrow McLaren Racing reports that veteran spotter Bob Jeffrey passed away Thursday evening after having unfortunately dealt with a long battle with cancer. We've said it before. We'll say it again. Cancer sucks. Jeffrey, as noted, a veteran spotter, not just in IndyCar, but NASCAR as well. Jeffrey got his start spotting in the Cup Series, first for Dale Jarrett, and helped Dale Jarrett win the 1999 Cup Series title. When Jarrett retired, he moved over to Stewart-Haas Racing, became Tony Stewart's sponsor, helped him to the 2011 title. He then spotted for Danica Patrick and a couple of other drivers before switching in 2019 from NASCAR to IndyCar, where he joined Team Penske to spot for Joseph Newgarden, and all they did in that first year together was win the first of Newgarden's two titles. And for last year and this, he was looking out for Pato O'Ward. Arrow McLaren says they're going to run a special sticker remembering Jeffrey in all three cars this weekend. Stewart-Haas Racing has also said something about doing something in remembrance of him from his activities. I know Dale Jarrett on NBC in their coverage at Indianapolis this weekend will probably have plenty to say about Bob Jeffrey as well. Spotters sometimes don't get the recognition I think that they deserve. And Bob Jeffrey, to be able to come in, help two different Cup Series drivers to claim titles, then switch to IndyCar, which, you know, there are things obviously that you can carry over from being a spotter, but it is a different thing to deal with. And to turn around and continue in your championship winning ways, that I think says more than I could put into words about what a spotter means and how good Bob Jeffrey was at what he did.
Yeah, Bob he was very, very sharp. He was, I would say, the most respected spotter in motorsports overall. And it says a lot about him that he was in Iowa spotting, and I don't think anybody really never knew how totally sick he was, because he was there at the track at Iowa spotting.
Yeah.
And then he loses his battle on Thursday.
I know.
But he's I had a couple chances to talk with him and meet him, and he's a really good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And a very profound voice on the spotter stand. Is now silent, but hey, his legacy will carry on. All the people that was able to learn from him and carry on what he taught them on to what they're doing currently today.
Hopefully they learn their lessons well. He will be missed. And then you get Arrow McLaren racer Alexander Rossi, who actually won't be racing this weekend. During practice just yesterday, Friday, as we air live on Saturdays, Rossi got his car, the number 7 car, a little bit out of shape going into and through turn 8 of the street course. He tried to correct it, tried to keep it off the wall, couldn't. And when the car did slap the wall, wrenched the wheel right out. And we've talked about this. This is the problem with open wheel and open cockpit racing, open wheel specifically. You wrench the wheel like that, you better have your hands off the wheel. And he didn't. And it broke the thumb of his right hand.
That's the didn't fold his arms fast enough.
Bingo. Due to the injury, he's been pulled from the racer, the planned 85-lap event. As of airtime, the replacement has not been named. I tried to see if there was an update this morning.
Or has it?
Okay. What are you hearing?
An official release from Arrow McLaren.
Okay.
That hit about, let me get it up and I'm going to read it word for word. That hit a little bit over an hour ago following an on-track incident where Alexander Rossi sustained a broken thumb. Arrow McLaren Indycar team announces that to pilot the number 7 ride in Toronto from the remainder of the weekend will be none other than Teo Pourchaire.
Aha. Okay.
Teo will arrive to the track ahead of the qualifying session Saturday afternoon, missing practice 2 as he is en route from France to Toronto to drive the car.
Well, have a nice trip. So Teo Pourchaire back in action, taking the place of Rossi. Rossi has 8 career wins in the IndyCar Series, including a win in the 2016 Indy 500, but out of that ride at the end of the year anyway. He was highly complimentary of the IndyCar safety and medical teams, confirmed the broken right thumb after he was checked out by IndyCar's med unit at the track. He was not taken to a local hospital. How long will he be out? Don't know. We've seen drivers come back from this relatively quickly. Depends on, obviously, how bad the break is and how much they can kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, splint it as to whether or not he's going to be able to get back in the car, soon, or whether it's going to be more towards the end of the year. I'm no doctor and I don't play one on the radio, so.
No, I'm not either, but I'm going to say he's going to be out at least one race.
Past this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And you may very well be right. I mean, they're going to want to give this thing some time to try to heal on its own. And, it really doesn't matter whether it's an oval or a road or a street course that they're going to be on. Either way, we know, because we keep hearing all the differences, that all these drivers, whether they're from NASCAR going to IndyCar, Kyle Larson, or whether they're Formula One drivers who are going to IndyCar, read Romain Grosjean or any number of others, they sit there and they talk about how actually somewhat more difficult it is to drive an IndyCar car because for things like, for example, no power steering. You're putting a lot of pressure on yourself in trying to do what these guys do, and your thumb is a vitally important part of that.
That you are.
So, yeah. That
you are.
A lot of it, I think, depends on exactly the severity of this break and how they might be able to kind of give it some reinforcement to allow it to be able to be used. And if they feel like they can't get that particular situation done, then yeah, he may be sitting out for a race, maybe even more past this weekend. So time will tell. Mm-hmm. We could really go into matter of fact, we're going to, because you and I have kind of different takes on this particular situation that happened last week at Pocono between the drivers of the 7 and the 8 car. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears. We'll go from IndyCar to talk about the Cup Series. Still got Formula E and Formula One, and We've even got IROC news this week. Yeah. I love the fact that I actually get to say that. It's so cool. And if we can't have the SRX, man, we might as well have IROC, right? So we'll get to all of that coming up in hour number 2. Thank you for joining us here in hour 1. Stick around. Hour 2 will officially begin in about 3 minutes.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hour number 2 getting underway with Steve West and producer John in studio. Matt is joining us by phone. He is enjoying some time out on the coast and actually took some time to play with the kiddies, I guess, here on the show. Thanks, Matt. We appreciate you taking the time out.
Yep.
Before you left, and we're going to do the self-serving promo here. I talked about our podcast, Cross Flags. Some of you may not know that it is out there. It is. We've actually done 19 episodes. If you go on to CRN Live on YouTube, you can check them out. All of them. They're all up there. Episode 19 got posted, what was it, Thursday, John? Thursday, yes. Yeah, okay. We recorded it Wednesday, and our producer for the podcast is talented at what she does, Molly. But the thing about it is she's very young. And while she does know sports, she's starting to learn racing. So we have taken to what we start calling the education of young Molly. I mean, she's fresh out of college, Nebraska, Cornhusker. And Well, we're trying to get her initiated into the racing world. So in the education of young Molly, we have done now 2 different episodes where she hones her interview skills by interviewing Matt and myself. And she took it a little bit away from the overall racing aspect in this particular one and started asking Matt and I more things like trying to get to know us. So go check it out. I think you'll find it kind of hopefully you'll find it entertaining, and join us each and every week. We record it on Wednesdays, try to have it up Wednesday evening, Thursday at the latest. So again, look it up, go to YouTube, CRN Live, subscribe please if you haven't already. We're up to 103. I'd like to see 110. That'd be cool. Yeah, like and comment. And the one, I bring this up mainly because I've seen a couple of comments on a couple of things that you and I got to talking about, Matt, from things that she asked. So,
right.
Feel free to take part as well. Like to see that kind of stuff.
And if you have questions, you can always reach out at team@crnradio.us.
Yeah, you could actually do that right now because producer John can actually see that and he can relay said question or comment to either Matt or myself.
That's team, TEAM, @crnradio.us.
There you go. All right. So we talked about this on the podcast a little bit as well. NASCAR looked into the incident that happened on track between the 7-car Corey LaJoie and the 8-car Kyle Busch last weekend at Pocono. They decided not to issue a fine or a penalty to LaJoie. Now, if you didn't see it, coming off a restart going into turn 1, LaJoie got down under Busch, and when Busch initially kind of came down, LaJoie got into him, spun Busch out, ended his day as he got into multiple drivers trying to navigate turn 1. LaJoie claimed on SiriusXM satellite radio that SMT data shows he didn't turn into Busch intentionally. But then Friday afternoon, Kyle Busch got onto the Pat McAfee show on ESPN, and he said about the incident that LaJoie had, quote, texted me and then he called me. I didn't even reach back out because he changed his story 4 times. So I'm like, you're just a liar. You wrecked me. I get it. It's fine. Whatever. Payback's coming. This is fairly typical Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is going to call a shot, and then he's going to make the shot. I mean, we've seen that many, many times. That's nothing new out of Kyle Busch. I have said that I didn't really think that this was all that malicious. Now, I wasn't watching the race, unfortunately. You were, Matt. You say you think there was. Let me state this, because there is one more aspect to this. As for LaJoie, after the race, he told, I guess it was NBC and or MRN Radio, that he was not going to say sorry. Those are his words, not mine, when it came to the wreck. But when he got on a Stacking Pennies podcast, he went a little bit further. He said this, quote, as I tried to replay it back, and I wish I had done my interview with replays before I said anything because I didn't know, I probably am more remorseful. That's the right word. But I do feel bad even for Kyle. I don't want to end his day. Randall Burnett, who's Kyle's crew chief, we're buddies. I don't want to wreck anybody's day. So upon initial thoughts, he apparently feels like this was just a racing incident. But in looking at it in the replay, maybe he's realizing that there might be more to this than just some innocent little blocking maneuver. And you've gone so far as to say basically you feel like he intentionally hooked him.
I'm trying to find the right words to say here because when there is a radio transmission that is played back between Corey LaJoie and Ryan Sparks, that, it's filled with a few explicatives talking about the incident.
Sure.
And both of them say he got what he deserved after he turned him, but yet you're changing your story. Oh, the SMT data showed that I didn't do that. Give me a godforsaken break. Your hands are on the wheel. Your rear end is sitting in the seat. Your foot is on the throttle. Your other foot is on the brake. Your hand is on the shifter. You know what you did. You're trying to cover your tracks. But we've got an incident that happened in Chicago where you have another driver go up and pop the winning car in the door because they made contact earlier in the race and one car wrecked.
Right.
You go up and pop him in the door. Oh, we're fining that driver $50,000. But you've got a driver that openly admits on the radio he got what he deserved when he turned one car back into the field and wrecks multiple cars.
Well,
give me a break.
Yeah,
give me a break.
I will say this: whether or not you agree or disagree that Corey LaJoie should have or shouldn't have been fined, I will say this: there is an inconsistency here. Okay, because we have seen over the course of the last 3-4 races now, 2 drivers get fined. You just mentioned last week at Chicago between Bubba Wallace and the race winner, Alex Bowman. We could go back even before that and talk about the fine and the points penalty that was handed to Carson Hocevar for what he did when he got into, under caution, Harrison Burton in the 21 car. So you get fine there and a fine for Bubba. But at the same time, we don't get a fine for Chase Elliott for slamming into a car at Chicago. And then you got this situation, which, as you mentioned, you get the driver and the crew chief basically saying that Kyle got what he deserved, but no fine there. My biggest problem with this is the massive inconsistency, because I'm not sure where NASCAR's drawing lines here, because that line seems to constantly be moving.
That line is moving way too much. One. Secondly, this is how I'm going to term this: the sanctioning body that is making these decisions on penalties or not penalties, and I'm looking squarely in your eyes, Eldon Sawyer, because you're the bell cow for everybody going out talking about what's done here and what's done there. I'm looking squarely at you in the eye. Stop with the knee-jerk reactions of what you see of people chirping and raising Cain and fussing about on social media when one person does this and another person does the same thing. But, let's don't do that no more, guys. If the other guy does it, you owe us $50,000. That's a knee-jerk reaction to what you see on social media right there.
Yeah.
Because if you shut social media off and do your job and officiate the race like it needs to be officiated, Wallace probably never gets fined. But when you got people that go to social media and see this and this, we may need to look at this. Give me a break. Give me a break.
I follow you. I do. I understand right where you're going from. Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. For me, the biggest part is the inconsistency. You know, you find him, don't find him. Okay? But make up your mind. If these things are all as similar as we have come to think that they are and come to believe that they are based upon what we've seen on the track, why are we inconsistent when it comes to how we are penalizing, for lack of a better term, or not penalizing, as the case may be? I just, the massive inconsistency is what drives me crazy here. It really does. When you got LaJoie that's doing a podcast that NASCAR, oh wait, did I say that loud? Mm-hmm. That NASCAR's pushing. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. Well, here's the thing. We could say the same thing about a lot of stuff. You know, National Football League, for example, they're sitting there talking about how they want to make sure that they continue to watch out for the health of their players. But why is it that every single time I turn around and they're doing some sort of promotional activity or promotional video for the series, they're more than happy to show some of the hard hits that linebackers lay on quarterbacks or safeties lay on wide receivers that are crossing the middle of the field, for example? Again, where's the consistency?
Yeah, there's no such thing as consistency in sports anymore.
Amen.
None.
Yeah, amen to that.
There's none.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. All right. After this weekend, be it Toronto for IndyCar, Indianapolis for NASCAR, or wherever it is, they're going to be taking a break. This allows NBC, who holds the television rights for both of those series right now, to be able to concentrate on their Olympics coverage. So if you're a racer, do you take the time off? Now, some will. Some are going to take this as an opportunity to have like a kind of a mid-season vacation, if you will. And let's face it, I wouldn't necessarily blame them if they do, because in the Cup Series, the last time we had a break was 20 plus weeks ago, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Easter weekend.
I get it. You know, yeah, you might be willing to take a small vacation before you get back to work. Daniel Suarez isn't one of those. Daniel Suarez is going to go south, way south, to continue his racing. He's going to Brazil. In fact, he's going to be racing in Sao Paulo at the noted Interlagos circuit. That's where Formula One is going to race later this year. He'll be competing in the NASCAR Brazil Series Special Edition Tournament. This similar to the cars that were running that he raced with in the NASCAR Mexico Series the beginning of the year at the LA Coliseum, the race that was supposed to happen before the Busch Light Clash, but because of pending weather, they got flipped and they ran the Busch Light Clash and then did the NASCAR Mexico Series race after. Very similar series to that. And he says this will also allow him to be able to celebrate his marriage to his fiancée, Julia Piquet, who's from Brazil. Her family is there, and they will be there in attendance at this particular event that he's going to be racing in. Suarez said, and I'm not going to try to imitate his accent because I can't, quote, not only is this an opportunity to try something new, but with my fiancé's family roots in Brazil, gives me a chance to race in a place that she calls home. I mean, we know the Kyle Larsons of the world, they're going to go out and they're going to find something to do, because if they don't have a wheel in their hand, they're going to go stir crazy. Daniel Suarez going to Brazil and also thinking about his wife and his or pending wife and family, that says a lot to me. And I like it. I think it's a great move, and I'm wondering if there's a chance to see this somewhere on streaming or something.
That's what you call a race car driver's perfect world. You go get married to your fiance and get to race at the same time.
She's a keeper.
Just saying.
Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely.
She's a keeper. I got to admit, I'm trying to see if I can get on and check out qualifying, but Formula One is just not letting me do it.
I've got it up right here.
Can I do that?
They are in Q1.
Of course. Good grief. All right, so I'm going to have to rely on you for that. So Q1's not quite done.
They're under red flag in Q1 right now.
Of course they're under red flag.
6:45 left.
Okay. Keep us updated on that.
Yeah, right now as it stands, your bottom 5 that would be out as it stands right now, but it's just not over.
Okay.
Bottom 5 out would be Ricciardo, Stroll, Magnussen, Guan Yu, and Hulkenberg.
Have they turned laps?
Yes, they have turned laps.
Okay.
Right now, your top 5, your top 10 currently is Hamilton, Sainz, Verstappen, Piastri, Alonso, Norris, Sargent, Leclerc, and Perez, and Ocon.
Okay. We'll see how it goes. We'll talk a little bit more about Formula One coming up in a minute anyway. But we're still in Cup Series news, where Trackhouse Entertainment Group, which is the parent company of Trackhouse Racing, they've announced they got the addition of a new investor in the company. It's named Avenue Sports Fund. Avenue started up just last year. It assists both teams and leagues, quote, in the marketplace and on the track. That's what they say in their statement, flowery stuff. Mark Lazary, who is the chairman and CEO of Avenue, said, quote, we are excited to partner with Justin Marks and his organization as they continue to compete aggressively in the NASCAR Cup Series and MotoGP Series. Yeah, remember, they started the MotoGP team this year. Potentially in new motorsports in the future. I do find that part of the comment pretty interesting. Potentially in new motorsports in the future. Watch for that one, ladies and gentlemen. NASCAR's long held a position as the most popular racing series in North America. MotoGP is now one of the most popular motorsports in the world. Millions of cumulative race attendees and a substantial digital audience, all compelling attributes for an investment by Avenue Sports. So these guys apparently feel like they're going to be in for the long haul. And again, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, other motorsports.
Hello, IndyCar.
I was thinking IndyCar. I could see other possibilities as well, but yeah, IndyCar is the one that I've really got my mind on as far as where they might decide to go from here. That could be real interesting. And one more note here when it comes to the Cup Series, Richard Childress Racing. They're breaking out the number 33 Chevrolet Camaro again this weekend. They got a new partner that they want to show off, and this is a pretty good-looking car if you're looking at CRN Live on YouTube. It's a group called Titan Risk Solutions. New deal is going to actually also give Ty Dillon another chance to drive a Cup Series car as well. Ty, of course, the younger brother to Austin Dillon. He was full-time in Cup from 2017 to 2023, save 2021. But he lost his ride after last year, and he's now full-time in trucks. Tim Smith, who's the Titan Risk president, said, quote, "We're thrilled to be able to showcase Titan's vast reach across the trucking industry through the relationships and platform that our race team partnership with Richard Childress Racing provides. I can't think of a better way to introduce our relationship than Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a track seated in history and tradition, and with a race team that exemplifies the same commitment to quality and family values as Titan Risk Solutions. We're all looking forward to cheering on Ty Dillon this weekend, as well as an exciting lineup of Titan drivers in the years to come." So that automatically tells me that they're not thinking Ty Dillon long-term, which is probably a good thing, because when I looked at the numbers from the practice session yesterday, guess who was sitting pretty much dead last? Ty Dillon.
Yep.
That would have been my guess.
Yep. That's all I can say.
There are people. There are people that you wonder. And you could say this literally of every driver that's at the top level of whatever motorsport series they are. Sometimes you just kind of wonder, how'd they get where they are? And then there are others that you look at and go, I know how you got the seat. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to go any further with that particular comment. I think you know where I'm going.
Grandpa, write me a check.
Yep.
That would be another way to put it. Tell you what, Producer John, what you think time-wise? That tells me everything I needed to know. When we come back, we'll talk Xfinity Series, because JD Motorsports, massive problems. And what's going to be the end result? Well, we really don't know. But we do know this. It looks like things are about to come apart totally for that organization. And what does that mean otherwise? We'll give you some details on that, because we found out a little bit on that front. That's next.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
Since 19...
2 tires only. And back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. I'm Steve West. Matt Nicholson down by the beach. Producer John in studio with me. And we turn our attention to the Xfinity Series. And I don't know all the details of this. What we do know is this. And Matt, I'm bringing you in on this, obviously, because you know maybe even a little bit better than I do about, the whole business, so to speak, of the racing world. Specifically the business side, the checkbook side, if you will. JD Motorsports earlier this year filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. They did that back in April. And what they've been trying to do since then is what every organization that files for Chapter 11 does. This is bankruptcy protection, but allows you to continue to operate as a business while you would do things that attempts to restructure your debt so that you can then pay them off. That's the intent of Chapter 11 anyway. Jayski.com says they came across some paperwork, official paperwork, that says that JD Motorsports is in debt to the total of about $420,000. And in the grand scheme of things, while for you and me personally, that does sound like a lot of money, for a corporation, sometimes you think $420,000, that's not bad. But if you're a JD Motorsports and you have really ever since we've been covering the Xfinity Series on a regular basis and dealing with more than just the front runners, JD Motorsports has been somewhat similar to Dale Coyne Racing and IndyCar, where they've had the driver roulette wheel and we're going to spin the wheel and we don't know exactly where it's going to stop, but wherever it does, that'll be the driver we put in the car this week. JD Motorsports has been the revolving door, the roulette wheel, if you will, of sponsors, in the fact that, there's this sponsor this week, there's this sponsor this week, there's this sponsor this week, but this week this other week over here, we may not have one. And it doesn't take too much before you start getting behind. And when you start getting behind, that seems to snowball. And apparently it has here. $420,000. Again, they have been racing in order to keep money in since the filing, but it appears that it's stopped. And for all intents and purposes, they're about to fold up operations. Unless you have heard something different, and I haven't seen it yet.
I have not seen anything any different, nor have I heard anything any different.
Okay.
But, when I'm going to word it this way, and I'm just going to say it straight up. When you're operating out of an old warehouse building that sits in a cotton field in Gaffney, South Carolina,
mm-hmm.
and your entry point to your shop is a dirt road,
mm-hmm.
yeah, and you're trying to put a ton of cars on the racetrack and only sponsor for a couple of them. Ever since a few years back when they had that deal with Flex Seal,
mm-hmm.
and Flex Seal was on every single car that he put on the racetrack.
I remember that.
When that deal went away, when that deal went away, you started seeing JD Motorsports just kind of just fall back further and further and further and further, even further than they were.
Right.
But, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of hard to put into words.
Sure.
When you see how they've operated their team over the past 3 years.
Yeah. It's not that they haven't been earnest in trying it and they've been going out and trying to do everything that they can, but, when you're a bare bones organization and you really can't figure out a way to stop spinning your wheels, you just dig yourself a big hole in the ground, and that's what they have. And the latest example of why is because Alpha Prime Racing reportedly has acquired the owner points of the 4 car from JD Motorsports, and they've applied those points to the number 45 entry. This weekend at Indianapolis, that car is going to be driven by Garrett Smithley, but Alpha Prime is kind of in the same situation. They're using that revolving door of drivers. Garrett Smithley is not going to be in that car for the remainder of the year. You can see the car right now up on CRN Live on YouTube, so they've got Trophy Tractor on the hood, for example, but how long they're going to be on the hood of that car, we don't know. And when you think about it, by getting those points and applying them to the 45 car, Alpha Prime moved the 45 car up 6 places in the owner standings up to 36th. That was an improvement. I'm not sure which one's in worse position. Is it JD Motorsports or Alpha Prime?
Well,
Alpha Prime is kind of in the same situation. They're using that revolving door of drivers. Garrett Smithley is not going to be in that car for the remainder of the year. You can see the car right now up on CRN Live on YouTube, so they've got, Trophy Tractor on the hood, for example, but how long they're going to be on the hood of that car, we don't know. And when you think about it, by getting those points and applying them to the 45 car, Alpha Prime moved the 45 car up 6 places in the owner standings up to 36th. That was an improvement. I'm not sure which one's in worse position. Is it JD Motorsports or Alpha Prime?
Well, this Alpha Prime car is not a full that they're putting the points on is not a full-time car. Their full-time cars are the 43 and the 44. This car only runs sporadically with, a super speedway. Cesar Baccarella drives the car, and they'll put it on a road course every now and then. But they saw it as an opportunity to be able to get this car back on the track in a full-time capacity. But Trophy Tractor is a personal sponsor of Garrett Smithley.
Yeah.
So they're going to go wherever he goes.
Sure.
So it's an opportunity for them to get the 45 car back on the track. So when they do run it, and it's in a point situation, down to a point situation, if they don't qualify on speed,
they're guaranteed
they have
a starting
better
spot.
chance of getting in. They get a much better chance of getting in the race versus being 42nd in earned points compared to being now 36th.
Right. So you feel that this is a move towards Alpha Prime becoming a 3-car full-time organization?
They were 3-car full-time last year, and they scaled back to 2. So this is the door for them to go back to 3.
Okay. All right. Just double checking on that. All right. Things still under red flag up at Formula One in qualifying?
Yes.
Okay. Keep an eye on that. Meantime, talk about this. And we talked a pretty good amount about this during the Cross Flags podcast, but it's too much not to revisit, truth be told.
I stand corrected. Q1 just ended.
All right, let's go ahead and do that first.
I stand corrected. Your bottom 5 out in Q1 is going to be okay. We're gonna go from 20 to 16 this time.
Okay.
Gasly, Ocon, Guan Yu, George Russell, and Sergio Perez are out in Q1.
Now I did see the headline here that, and you said this as well, Sergio Perez was the cause of the red flag?
Correct. He did crash in Q1.
Okay.
Your quick time in Q1 was set by none other than Daniel Ricciardo.
Oh, hello. Well,
both RB cars are in the top 10.
Well, and the other thing that sticks out to me, other than George Russell, I mean, obviously George Russell sticks out like a sore thumb, or Alexander Rossi's broken thumb, as the case may be, when it comes to him not making it out of Q1. I mean, this is a guy who actually just had a win in Formula One competition, and he doesn't make it out of Q1 this time in a Mercedes. That says something. But the other thing that sticks out to me is that this is the continuation of what has been a nightmare year for Alpine. Both of their cars out in Q1.
Yes, and at the very bottom.
Yeah, wow. That's just the nightmare year continues for those fine folks at Alpine, doesn't it? And that brings us back to the whole Haas F1 situation. Haas F1 continues to try to lock in their future, and while we haven't heard any updates on the potential partnership with Toyota that we talked about last week that would help them build their chassis, they are going to continue their partnership with Ferrari through at least the 2028 season to run their power units and maybe more. I mean, this is what they call a technical partnership, which means, and you and I elaborated on this a little bit more during the Cross Flags podcast, like I said, they're not really sharing body work, but what they're sharing is, yes, the power unit and a lot of the suspension pieces, and you said you feel like probably the floor pan as well.
Yes.
And there is a limit. There's a percentage, and I honestly, I haven't looked into the really stupidly thick rule book that Formula One has to find out what that percentage is. But there is a percentage that Haas F1, in this case, or a team that is allied with another organization like Haas F1 is with Ferrari, there is a certain percentage of parts that you can directly take from Ferrari in this case and put directly onto your car without modifying it. And just to throw out a number, I know that number is less than 50%. I put the number 49.9%. Whatever that strict limit is, Haas F1 is sitting right at that limit because they said that from day one. We're going right up to that limit that Formula One's rules allow us to go to of taking parts directly off the shelf from Scuderia Ferrari and putting it on our car, bolting it onto our cars. We're going to do that, and we're going to do that as long as we can. And that's all that this does. This continues the agreement to allow them to do that, because I don't see the FIA or Formula One changing that rule or even thinking about changing that rule anytime too soon. So whatever that percentage is, that's going to stick.
Right.
And it does seem to be working, especially this year for Haas F1, because what had been a dormant team looking for a heartbeat, now all of a sudden they start to be looking for the next ladder or rung on the ladder to climb up, which, if you're a fan of Formula One and want an American team to do well, this is right now your only hope at that.
Yeah. They got to get them something aligned. What I would say, get them something aligned better to get more consistency.
Well,
you know, they're getting there.
They're getting there. I'll admit
they're not.
They're not there.
Not where they need to be.
I agree with that.
They're not there.
This agreement extends the collaboration between the two that Haas F1 has had since they joined Formula One back in 2016. And this is kind of important as well, because if you remember, we're going to get those new engine regulations coming up in 2026 for the power units. Haas F1 isn't going to have to scramble to figure out where their future might be. This gives them more time to be able to work that out. Ferrari right now powers 3 different teams. They power themselves. They give the power units to Haas F1. They also give power units to Sauber. But remember that some of that heat's going to be taken off, because after 2025, Sauber's going to be dropping Ferrari, because then they turn control over to Audi. It becomes the Audi Works team, and Audi's supposed to have their own power units available and ready to go by then. So unless another agreement comes up, the only customer at that point in time that Ferrari has to worry about is Haas F1. So that takes a little bit of pressure off of them. And it does seem like, and I don't know what it is, but there has been a change, and it's not just Gunther Steiner for Mr. Komatsu, Ayo Komatsu. His change seems to have redirected the Haas F1 garage as a whole. They seem a heck of a lot more confident now than what they were just last year. And you and I talked about this when just before the season debuted, and you watched, what was it, episode 4 of this year's Drive to Survive? I think it was, that concentrated on Haas F1, and they were following Gunther Steiner all over the place. Gunther Steiner would call Gene Haas, and it really honestly seemed like Gunther and Gene Haas were butting heads more than they were agreeing on what the next step was supposed to be.
You could safely say that.
So just making the switch in the team principal, while a lot of people were shocked by it, apparently has been, sorry, Gunther, but addition by subtraction.
Yeah, you're not wrong with the way you worded that and presented it right there. I mean, it does seem more this year that Komatsu, he has more overall control around the culture and how Haas F1 operates, versus the word Gunther had it, and it was more kind of a, I guess you could say, in some ways, it was more like a sideshow because of how Gunther's popularity was with the garage and the fans. It was more centered around him than versus around the team.
Yeah,
if that's the right way to say that.
And I'm not going to lie to you when I say this. I like Gunther Steiner. I like his personality. I like what he brings to the organization or to the racing world as a whole. He brings a personality to it that is lacking in some ways from a lot of commentators. But I mean, I say addition by subtraction because it's not like they brought Komatsu in. He was already in the Haas F1 organization. When they removed Gunther Steiner, they just promoted Komatsu. So that's why I say addition by subtraction. You didn't add in Komatsu. He was already there. You just promoted him and you removed Steiner.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So Ferrari's deal is there. Komatsu's making good moves. We already know that Nico Hülkenberg is going to be joining Sauber after this year and be ready for them when they become the Audi team. We've been wondering about the future of the other seat. Okay, Ollie Behrman's going to take over Nico Hülkenberg's seat. We know that. Then it became the Kevin Magnussen watch. That watch will officially end at the end of this year. Magnussen's contract with the team comes to an end at the end of this year. It will not be renewed. Announced late Wednesday afternoon, U.S. time, Magnussen's time behind the wheel after 7 years, over 2 different stints, by the way. Having scored no wins, but having been something of a steadying force for this team, especially at their lowest point, is going to be final. Team principal Ayo Komatsu said this, quote, "I'd like to thank Kevin for everything he's given us as a team, both on and off the track. He's truly been a bedrock of our driver lineup over the years. Nobody's driven more races for Haas F1, and we've had some memorable highlights together, not least a remarkable 5th place finish at the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2022 when Kevin returned to the team." Komatsu added that while Magnussen will not be driving for the team, he does hope it's not the end of the relationship with Magnussen. Quote, "Beyond that, and with Kevin's special relationship with the team, I'm hoping we can find a way to keep working together in some capacity. We can hopefully define that in the near future, but his extensive experience in Formula One and knowledge of our working operations are undoubtedly of value in our ongoing growth and development." The team did not make an announcement as to who their new driver might be. Magnussen himself has been a little bit more vocal since arriving in Hungary for this weekend's race. He said he appreciated Komatsu's sentiments about wanting to keep him within the fold, but he says at this time he's prioritizing an actual drive in Formula One next year. But even if he didn't get one, said probably wouldn't accept a reserve role for Haas. And I'll be real honest when I say this, I would be shocked if IndyCar and or Formula E didn't come a-calling, if another Formula One ride didn't materialize.
Yeah, I mean, I would say on the higher end, I would say it'd be more Formula E than it would be Formula One for Magnussen's sense.
Yeah. What do you would? So, and I'm going to ask this, and you may not know the answer to it. And if you don't, be honest. Would you think IndyCar is a viable option for him at this time?
Yeah, it's a viable option. It's just a matter of
finding the seats
available.
Hey, Dale Coyne. Yeah. Talk about a guy who can actually make more out of something than what you've got. Kevin Magnussen's that guy. I mean, Kevin Magnussen has made chicken salad out of chicken you-know-what at Haas F1 for a couple of years now. You could do a lot worse. You could do a lot worse, Dale Coyne, than bringing in a Kevin Magnussen. I'm just saying. As for whoever might be coming in to Haas F1, several reports, including one from the BBC, but nothing official from either the driver or Haas F1, states that it looks like it's going to be Esteban Ocon, who has already said he's going to be leaving Alpine at the end of the year. I don't really have a problem with that move. I'll be honest with you. I think you get a veteran presence in there who can come in and he can be a mentor to Ollie Behrman if he can put aside his own, and I'm not going to say necessarily put aside his own selfishness, because to a certain extent you have to be, and he would be the clear number one driver there, but wouldn't the team be wanting an Esteban Ocon, or, truth be told, any driver that they bring in who's probably going to be a veteran anyway, wouldn't they want them to be something of a mentor to the young Ollie Behrman?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it.
And what we have known...
He would need a good...
Go ahead.
I said he would need a good mentor.
Yeah, I would agree, and it certainly wouldn't hurt him. As for Esteban Ocon, we have heard the rumors that he and Pierre Gasly don't necessarily get along all that well together. I don't know whether that's just a personality conflict between the two of them or whether that is a fault that Esteban Ocon has. And if it is, Esteban Ocon needs to figure out how to get over it. To me, that's the biggest failing for him. Most of the people that are sitting there talking about this that don't like the move, potentially, of Esteban Ocon to Haas F1 are calling him Esteban O'Crash. I don't see him necessarily crashing any more than anybody else. To me, the biggest problem is he needs to be able to put aside his personality issues if he has them and be able to figure out a way to be that mentor to Ollie Behrman.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
Autumn Cove is...
Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Final segment of this weekend show already. Good grief. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers with you. Matt by phone. That might be why it sounds a little odd to you if you've been listening and trying to figure it out. Yeah, Matt's by phone. He's at the beach. Dude, seriously.
At a very wet, rainy, stormy beach right now.
You're at the beach. Hush.
I'm just saying.
I know. I got you. It's kind of like my wife and I said, and, small brag here. We had the opportunity to go to Hawaii for our honeymoon back in 2002. A rainy day in Hawaii is better than a sunny day at work any day of the week. Rainy day at the beach is still not a bad way to be. That's what I'm saying.
Ding.
A couple of things here. Let's talk Formula E real quick. Silly season hitting them. They are, again, they're in their final week of the year, and CBS is actually airing both of those races. So if you haven't seen a Formula E race before, and the vast majority of the country does not have CBS Sports Network. Yes, Chi-Town Mark, you're one of the few lucky ones who actually does. But in this case, you don't even need it because it's actually on CBS today and tomorrow, and you get to watch this, and you would get to hear the high-pitched whine and the, what sounds like, a basketball scrimmage. Because that's kind of what it sounds like, truth be told. But it's not bad racing. It's just missing engine sounds. I'm just going to say it that way. But next year, ABT Cooper is looking for a driver. Nico Muller has informed the team that he's leaving them after this weekend's London doubleheader. And as he heads to this weekend, he's sitting 14th in the standings, completing his second year running in Formula E for ABT. He's raced for ABT since 2016. He's running like the German DTM Touring Car Series and some other series for them before moving into Formula E. ABT CEO Thomas Biermeyer said, quote, "It was our wish to keep Nico with the team and be successful with him again, but now we have to accept his decision and wish him all the best for the future." So ABT Cooper, which hasn't had a great year, as ABT has come back in, they took the year off last year and then came back in as part owner with the Cooper organization. They have not really had a good year. So obviously there are changes that need to be made. And Nico Muller, according to a lot of reports, is being linked to Andretti Global to run for their Formula E organization next year, which will be a major step up for him. I mean, this is a team that has been competitive for titles here over the last, 3-4 seasons at the very least, if not going back all the way to the beginning of it. So it'll be a major step up for Nico Muller. But ABT Cooper's, they're looking for help.
Yeah, for sure.
So you as a driver, and I'll put this kind of in your wheelhouse here. You as a driver, you're running for a backmarker organization. And you have the inside track, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, to be able to kind of figure out what the organization is looking like. In other words, you have the opportunity to foresee whether or not the infrastructure is there that gives you hope for a resurgence in the future and that you'll be able to move up in the standings and have a much more competitive car. Because 14th is not great, but it's not the worst in the world. It's middling. And that means there are 13 places that you can improve. And if you're given the opportunity to move to a team that you honestly feel like gives you a chance to move up several of those spots, maybe not all 13, but certainly several of those, you as a driver almost have to jump at that chance, don't you?
Yeah, you have to, because if who you're driving for currently is not giving you the car that you need to excel, if that's the right word for me to say that.
Sure. And you don't see promise for the future. Yeah, and you don't see promise for the future. Because I think that needs to be a part of it, doesn't it? I mean, if you can honestly say, okay, I've been with the ABT team in some way, shape, or form for almost a decade now, and I honestly feel like there is a light at the end of the tunnel that is not either, number one, going to be turned off, or number two, is a train coming at me. In other words, I see a legitimate light at the end of the tunnel to where we as a team are going to improve. If I don't see that, or if I do see that, I'm willing to stay with you. But if I don't see that, as a driver, I got to look out for myself, don't I? To some extent?
You have to, yes. You absolutely have to.
You know, and it's not like you're welching on a contract. I mean, if you don't have a contract past this year, this is your perfect opportunity to go, hey, but dude, I'm a free agent. I'm going to go starting to look around. And if I've got a team out there, in this case, Andretti Global, who I honestly feel like gives me a better chance to win races and potentially a championship in the very near future, I'm gone.
There's no question about it. Yeah.
Okay.
You got to secure your future, not be so team loyal. That's the right way for me to say it.
Yeah. I mean, certainly loyalty has its place. But again, if you're not getting the results and you know, or you honestly feel like it's not because of a lack of talent on your own part, but it's a lack of performance from the team as a whole, the car and everything else, you got to give yourself that opportunity to go find out and make sure that it is not you, that it is the equipment and or the team.
Yeah, right. I agree.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't off base on that one. Producer John might actually check in on this because he says he's actually kind of looking forward to this, and I am too. And if I can find it somewhere, and you may know more than this, Matt, about where we might be able to find out if this is going to show up on TV or on streaming somewhere. This IROC exhibition at Lime Rock Park in Connecticut, that's happening this weekend.
Yes, to my knowledge, it's not showing up anywhere.
Come on, this is such a missed opportunity.
Oh yeah, I know. It's just I wish it was.
Yeah, you and me both.
Because I've seen some photos of the cars there, and this is going to be, I guess you could say, this is going to be the epitome of a classic car.
Oh yeah,
classic car revival.
So here's the thing: if you don't know what it is that we're talking about, the IROC series is in and of itself, it's a throwback. It was a series that initially raced from 1974 to 2006, but it went away after the 2006 racing season because really a lack of sponsorship. And it had turned into, unfortunately, kind of just a NASCAR all-star thing, as opposed to what it had been at the beginning when you got drivers from Trans Am Series, IMSA, Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR. Literally it was the all-star racing series, but then it just kind of whittled down. And it became a whole bunch of NASCAR drivers on a whole bunch of NASCAR tracks running. And if you're looking at CRN Live on YouTube right there, you're looking at one of the, in this case, is diecast collectible of it, but that's one of the last editions right there. That is effectively a NASCAR stock car with a Pontiac Firebird Trans Am body on it. And does it look good? Yep. Yes, great. But effectively, that was a NASCAR stock car.
Mm-hmm. It was.
So it went away. Well, Ray Evernham, Tony Stewart, as we well know, 4 years ago, started up the SRX series, but Ray Evernham kind of got disillusioned with the whole thing, so he backs out. He went and he got and bought the rights to the old IROC name, series, image, you name it, everything, lock, stock, and barrel. And he's going to try to rebuild it. And he's actually got a title sponsor, and it goes back to that particular diecast that you're looking at. True Value has come on board as a sponsor, a major sponsor for the IROC Racing Series.
God bless True Value.
Amen. True Value, again,
that's big right there.
Yeah, primary sponsor of IROC for most of its initial run. They ended their partnership in 2003. Crown Royal took over for a couple of years, and then they went away. True Value's company CEO Chris Kempa said, quote, True Value and IROC are synonymous brands across racing and hardware, so it is truly incredible to be an integral part of this iconic event. Our partnership brought joy, enthusiasm, and a deep connection to community to our stores as we all rallied behind champions of their sport. We're thrilled to not only welcome the return of these legends, but continue to serve as part of their legacy. And as part of this legacy, we just talked about it, Lime Rock Park in Connecticut this weekend is an exhibition event for about a dozen of the old IROC cars, and these were spread around the country. Somehow Ray Evernham was able to get these cars from the initial Camaros to the Porsche 911, which ran for 1 year. There's a Dodge Avenger there that Mark Martin drove back in the day and will drive again this weekend, all the way up through the IROC Z Camaros of the 1980s that we all remember so well. And I was talking about that Pontiac Firebird, the diecast that we showed you on CRN Live on YouTube. There's a couple of those Pontiac Firebird Trans Ams there as well. Former IROC champions that will be in attendance to drive their cars again this weekend. The aforementioned Mark Martin, Bobby Labonte will be there. Al Unser Jr. will be there. Jeff Bodine will be there. And Ray Evernham looks to try to make this become, again, the series that he envisioned the SRX series to be, which is, again, trying to collaborate and get drivers from not only NASCAR, but IndyCar, maybe Formula One if the timing works out, NHRA, Trans Am, IMSA, whatever it is that's out there, and try and recreate the IROC series as it initially was supposed to be. I really hope he gets it done. That's all I can say. Matt, we're going to go ahead and let you go here. We appreciate you, brother. We'll see you in studio next week. Producer John, maybe not. Not next week for Producer John. So myself and Matt next weekend. But we'll be back next weekend. Of course, we'll be back on Wednesday as well, because we got another edition of Cross Flags to do. What are we talking about? It's a busy weekend. There's a lot of possibilities. You never know. Join us on Wednesday for Crossed Flags. Join us next weekend right here for the next edition of the Championship Racing Network. And until then, be careful out there. You might have heard thunder in the background, so if you're in East Central Alabama, lots of rain coming. Be careful out there. We'll talk to you Wednesday and next weekend.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.